With a swing of his mighty sword, he can change the balance of a fight, but there's a price to pay for his power and fortitude. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, welcome back to Legacy Gaming. Today, we're diving into Darkest Dungeon 2 and learning how to master the Leper. The Leper is easily one of the most powerful heroes in Darkest Dungeon 2, capable of rending foes in a single blow, protecting his allies, and restoring health and reducing stress when things get dire. However, his strength has a price, and you'll need to learn how to manage a number of different scenarios that leave the hero at a disadvantage. The Leper thrives in the first rank and becomes less effective the further back he gets. He's truly a frontline hero capable of carrying a run on his shoulders, but if you don't know how to strike a balance between all of his abilities, he can easily hold you back. Unlike some of the other heroes in the game, the Leper doesn't rely on status effects to chip away at enemies over time. He's all about raw power, but while his abilities may not be flashy, there is utility baked into nearly everything he brings to the table. Chop is the Leper's first ability. He can use this from the first 2 ranks and target the enemy's first 2 ranks. It deals 6 to 12 damage, has a 5% chance to crit, and when used, has a 75% chance to blind the Leper. You're going to see a trend with the blind effect throughout this video, but don't worry, there are some clever ways around it. Purge is our next ability. This can be used from the first 2 ranks and target the enemy's first rank. It deals 2 to 4 damage and has a 5% chance to crit. The real selling point to this ability is the knockback. If successful, Purge knocks back the target 3 spots and also clears all enemy corpses. Our first defensive ability is Withstand, and this is easily one of the best defensive moves in the game. When used, you gain 2 block tokens, 2 taunt tokens, and a 15% increase to bleed, blight, burn, and movement resistances, and at the start of your next turn, you'll gain another stack of block. This is your go-to defensive move and vital to keeping you and your team safe, especially against tougher enemies in the game. Like other powerful abilities in Darkest Dungeon 2, Withstand has a 3-turn cooldown and can only be used twice during combat. Our next ability is Solemnity, and this is the Leper's way of healing and reducing stress. When below 33% HP, Solemnity restores 33% of the Leper's total HP and reduces his stress by 2. This is a great ability but can only be used twice during combat. Next up, we have Reflection. This is an essential move for offsetting that blind status effect we talked about before. When used, Reflection reduces stress by 1 and removes any blind or combo tokens the Leper currently has. In essence, this is a way to set up a powerful damaging move, stripping away the chance to miss so you can land a big attack. Reflection is on a 1-turn cooldown. Our first unlocked ability is Hue. This move can be used from the first 2 ranks and targets both the first and second ranks on the enemy side. Hue deals 3 to 7 damage, has a 5% chance to crit, and has a 75% chance to apply a blind token to the Leper. The next ability is Revenge. This is a self-buff that can be used from any rank. It applies 2 instances of Vulnerable, but also adds a strength token at the start of your next turn. In short, this ability opens you up to take more damage, but makes your next attack more powerful. Revenge is on a 3-turn cooldown and can be used 2 times during combat. Intimidate is our next ability. This can be used from the first rank and can target any of the enemy ranks. It deals 1 to 2 damage and has a 5% chance to crit. When used, it applies 2 instances of Taunt on the Leper and applies 2 instances of Weak on the targeted enemy. This is a great ability to apply to elite enemies or any foe that uses high damage dealing attacks. Ruin is another self-buff. This can be used from the first 3 ranks and applies a buff that increases your damage by 20% so long as you're damaged. Ruin has a 3-turn cooldown and can only be used twice during combat. Break is another damage-dealing ability that can be used from the first 2 ranks and can target the enemy's first 2 ranks. It deals 4 to 7 damage, has a 5% chance to crit, and ignores block tokens and removes 1 instance of a block token. This is another ability that has a 75% chance to apply a blind token to the Leper. The final Leper ability is Bash. This can be used from the first 2 ranks and can target the enemy's first 2 ranks. Bash deals 2 to 4 damage, has a 5% chance to crit, and applies Immobilize to the Leper. The targeted enemy also receives an Immobilize token and a Daze token. As you can see, there is a healthy balance between damage and sustain, but Leper abilities have a tricky relationship, and to really appreciate that, we need to dive even deeper to understand how 5 core abilities synergize together in a proper build. Building out the Leper can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you lean too hard into any one aspect of his toolkit. We need to strike a balance between damaging abilities, utility, and sustain, and that's exactly what we're going to do. For my preferred build, I use Hew, Break, Withstand, Solemnity, and Reflection. Hew and Break are my damage dealing abilities. While Hew deals less damage, the ability to target 2 enemies instead of 1 makes it more impactful long term. If I do need to target an individual enemy, well, that's where Break comes into play. Remember, this ability ignores and destroys block tokens, and that's wildly beneficial when dealing with some of the tougher enemies in the game. This is my 1-2 punch when it comes to damage, but don't forget, we have to offset those blind effects. That's where Reflection comes into the picture. This is just a necessary ability early on, and one that will save you countless rounds of frustration. The real drawback here is that you waste a turn prepping an attack, but in my eyes, having a guaranteed chance to hit is imperative. If possible, you can use the milk-soaked linen combat item to remove the blind effect, but this isn't something that's entirely in your control. When you get them, great, but you can't rely on them to be there when in a pinch. Finally, we have Withstand and Solemnity, and these are both pretty self-explanatory. We're playing the Leper as a frontline warrior whose job it is to protect the team, but also perfectly capable of keeping himself in the fight. Like I said earlier, Withstand is just too good to pass up, and Solemnity takes the pressure off your healer, allowing them to focus on other members of your team as necessary. These are the 5 abilities that work best for me. The synergy just feels right, and I always feel like I have a tool to fit the situation in combat. But just wait, things are about to get even better. One thing that was missing from our first Mastering Darkest Dungeon 2 video was the upgrades, and I realize now that that's something we need to address. As you can see here, I've upgraded 3 of the Leper abilities at the Mastery Trainer. Withstand is an obvious choice, at least in my mind. By upgrading this ability, you get 2 Block Plus tokens. This further reduces the damage you take to 75%. You also get additional status resistances, increased to 25% for Bleed, Blight, Burn, and Movement. This is all about survivability, making yourself a wall on the battlefield, and honestly, it's one of the first abilities I upgraded during a run. Solemnity is another ability I like to upgrade. By enhancing this skill, you're improving your sustain. When upgraded, Solemnity will restore 50% health and reduce your stress by 3. The final ability I like to prioritize upgrading is Hew, and this is really where things start to come together. When upgraded, Hew deals 4 to 9 damage, has a 5% chance to crit, and only has a 60% chance to self-inflict blind. The real magic though is that when a target has a combo token, your blind status is irrelevant, and you'll hit them regardless. This can be incredibly powerful, especially when you have a team that's capable of applying combo liberally. This upgrade allows you to deal more damage more often because you don't have to rely on Reflection to clear the debuff. Of course, upgrading anything is going to be valuable, but these are the 3 abilities I find are the most reliable during a run and allow me to still focus on other ability upgrades with my other heroes. Playing the Leper is all about the setup, understanding the relationship between the abilities, and capitalizing on powerful buffs to protect your team or unleash an attack on enemies. When you're not under the effect of blind, you can run wild, using Hew or Break as often as possible to deal damage. Remember that Hew has a slightly lower baseline damage, so only use it when you're guaranteed to hit 2 enemies. Break is a bit stronger and does have that additional utility, so really lean into that to open up new opportunities for your other teammates. Block is an annoying token to have to deal with, so by taking it out of the equation with Break, you can let one of your other damage dealers do the bulk of the fighting. If you're having bad luck with Blind, just get used to using Reflection. Yes, it takes you out of the mix for 1 turn, but that guaranteed chance to hit is more important. I should also note that even when you miss with Hew or Break, it still has a 75% chance to add a Blind token, so it's best to just do the setup the proper way unless you have another way to get around Blind. In terms of Withstand, well, this should be your opener in most situations, especially against powerful enemy teams. This is going to give you a nice buffer as you start the damage train and keep your team nice and protected during arguably the most crucial part of the fight, the beginning. On the other side of the equation, Solemnity should be used as necessary when you'll gain both health and stress benefits, but sometimes this is out of your control. Use it when necessary, and don't think twice about it. When building around the Leper, you really only need to focus on one thing: combo tokens. If the other heroes on your team can add combo tokens to the enemy, that's going to have a huge impact on your experience with the Leper. I found that the Jester was a really solid choice because of his upgraded abilities. Nearly all of the damage-dealing attacks have a chance to add combo, and this means less reliance on Reflection and more time dealing damage. It's also important to have a healer on your team, someone that can take care of the other members of your party. The Leper is a good frontline warrior, but his strength is really self-sustained, not protecting everyone else all the time. This is the real difference between the Leper and, say, the Man-at-Arms, and the reason why having a healer is pretty important. You can really make use of anything here, as the interaction between the Leper and the healer is sporadic at best. The last slot can really be filled with any high damage dealing character. For my first clear with the Leper, I chose to bring the Highwayman. His skills are incredibly potent, and he has the flexibility to move around ranks as necessary. I was using Point Blank Shot, which I found to synergize really well with the Leper. I'd use Duelist Advance to move into the first rank, then use Point Blank Shot to drop back into position. Because most of the Leper skills can be used from the first 2 ranks, that just worked out really well. Honestly, you could go with whoever you want here. If they can apply combo, great, but as long as they're capable of dealing high damage, you're going to be in good shape. When it comes to weaknesses, the Leper definitely has a few. The first, of course, is Blind. We've talked at length about this, but it's still worth pointing out again. Self-inflicted debuffs are never a good thing, but at least there are ways around it in this case. Second is the Leper's inability to move ranks easily. This is one of the only characters in the game that doesn't have a single ability that forces movement, and that's definitely an issue, especially when the Leper gets out of position. There's really no way around this, you just need to be careful about how you build your team, and make sure anyone that goes into rank 1 has a way to get out of it so the Leper doesn't waste a turn or get knocked out of position. The final real drawback is speed. The Leper is slow and often plays caboose rounding out a turn. This can be an issue, especially if you want to capitalize on break, removing blocks from enemies. You can offset this with items, but that's really up to you. Choosing to lean into speed is effective, but increasing your damage is also a great option and may be more impactful than enhancing speed. This really comes down to your personal preference, so feel it out and make the necessary changes during your run. When it comes to damage, look no further than the Leper. With the right build and the proper knowledge, he can easily carry your team to the mountain and beyond. The Leper is incredibly powerful, and if you lean into that, you'll reap the rewards, but fail to strike a balance and you'll end up dead long before you reach the end of your journey. Hopefully now you yourself can master the Leper. If you found this video interesting or helpful, do me a solid and hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you want to see this series continue with the other heroes, consider dropping us a comment. Let us know. You can also join us on Discord. We've got a great community of around 7,000 members with a special section dedicated just for Darkest Dungeon 2, so check out that link below and join today. Finally, if you like everything we're doing here at Legacy Gaming and you want to help us out even more, you can now do so by becoming a member. For just a couple bucks, you're helping evolve the channel and take our community to that next level. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.